Yo, what is up YouTube? It's your boy T Hatch coming back at you with another video. As you can see from the title today, we are going to be talking about Victor Oladipo and the Indiana Pacers and some potential trade options now that Victor Oladipo has decided to ask for a trade from the front office. Now, real quick before I get into that, just wanted to say if you enjoy the show and want to help it grow, the absolute best way to do so is to simply share this with your friends. So go ahead and hit that share button below. Definitely subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And with that out the way, I'm going to get right into it. So, after evaluating potential trades from all 30 NBA teams, I have 13 trades that I believe could potentially happen involving Victor Oladipo now that he has requested a trade from the Indiana Pacers. So I'm going to hop right into this. I don't have these in any particular order. I went through these initially going through the Eastern Conference first into the Western Conference, but I went through all 30 NBA teams, obviously, if you count Indiana in that, to see what I think would be some good potential trades for Victor Oladipo. So I'm actually going to start with an exciting one, the Los Angeles Lakers. Yes, they are in the NBA Finals right now, but they're not going to pass up a chance to get a guy like Victor Oladipo out on the open market. So I see them potentially trying to hop into these trade negotiations this offseason and at least feel out if they may be able to get Victor Oladipo. So what would this trade look like? Well, you're going to see it on screen right here. This trade, the Pacers would get Avery Bradley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Quinn Cook, Talon Horton-Tucker, and a 2025 first-round pick from the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Victor Oladipo and him alone. Now, obviously, as you can see from the image there, this would depend on Avery Bradley and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope both selecting to take their player option, accepting that option for that extra year to just end up traded in this scenario. Looking at both those salaries, $5 million for Bradley, there is a good chance he may leave that on the table. However, there is also a good chance he could be looking at this situation saying, okay, I'm coming off of injury and now going into free agency. Am I going to be able to get $5 million or more? Or am I more likely to trend more toward a veteran minimum? That is something he's going to have to decide with his agent and figure out what to do there. Very similar situation for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. However, I would say at $8.4 million, I don't know if I see Pope getting more than $8.4 million on the open market. Would he be able to get maybe $8.4 million for 2 years plus another player option? Potentially he could, and that's a deal that if I was in his position, I would take over that player option, especially if I'm going to end up getting traded. All that aside, assuming they accept those options, the idea here for the Pacers is really getting a couple guys that can fill in that rotation and help you out now that Oladipo is gone. They're not a weak team at guard, the Pacers. They do still have Malcolm Brogdon. They do have guys like Jeremy Lamb out there able to fill up minutes at the guard spots, but they would need some help in that rotation if Victor Oladipo is going to be gone. That said, they held up fairly well last year with Oladipo being out nearly the entire year and did not need that much help at the guard position. Now, obviously, they could use some extra perimeter scoring and someone who's able to do that at an elite level. That's what you're losing in Oladipo, at least when he's healthy. But in this trade, you are getting a young guy in Talon Horton-Tucker who's going to be able to grow potentially into one of your rotation guards, as well as that 2025 first-round pick, which, if you're looking at it from the Pacers' perspective, is saying, hey, there's a chance that LeBron James may be retired by this point, and at that point, this could be a pretty good Lakers pick that we'd be looking at. So that's the idea here behind this trade. Obviously, for the Lakers, the idea behind the trade is upgrading your high-end talent, now actually having a true perimeter scorer on your team who can really get it done and initiate things himself. That's the thing that they've been missing as an off-pace, change-of-pace thing from Anthony Davis and LeBron James, is that guy who can create scoring opportunities from the perimeter himself. And the bonus with Oladipo is he's also going to be able to play make off of those opportunities as well. So I think he would be an excellent fit with the Los Angeles Lakers, assuming that obviously those player options get accepted and the Pacers actually want to do this deal. Obviously, any of these deals, they would have to be the best option available for the Pacers, and they are going to make that decision based on their values and what they think is most important. So who knows if they do any of these trades. But I'm going to move on to my next trade, which is going to be with the Denver Nuggets. The other team that was in the Western Conference Finals just lost to the Lakers. What would it look like if they want to upgrade their high-end talent? This is an option for them to do that while also maintaining some flexibility moving forward. So in this deal, the Pacers would receive Gary Harris, PJ Dozier, Monte Morris, and a 2025 first-round pick. In exchange, the Nuggets would receive Victor Oladipo, and that's it. So very similar idea with this trade for the Nuggets, saying essentially we need to upgrade our high-end talent if we are going to contend for a championship. If we're going to be facing these teams that are going to be, throwing change of pace looks at Nikola Jokic, I don't think you're going to stop Jokic no matter what you do. Even Los Angeles had trouble doing that, but you are able to double team Jamal Murray. You are able to deny the ball to Jamal Murray. And while that's not going to completely shut him out of a game, it is going to slow him down to a point where teams can beat the Denver Nuggets. If you slow down Jamal Murray enough, you can resist that Jokic triple-double that's essentially there to be had every single game if he wants it. You can help slow that down by stopping Jamal Murray and making sure that you don't have these two incredibly lethal offensive weapons going off at the same exact time. What would happen if you add a guy like Oladipo, especially considering that this would maintain Michael Porter Jr.? You'd be in a position where if you double team somebody, you will get torched no matter what. Because, okay, if you deny the ball to Jamal Murray, well, guess what? It's getting swung over to Victor Oladipo, who's now going to be able to run a pick and roll with Nikola Jokic. If you hit Jokic on the short roll, he's going to be able to dime up anybody on this team, whether Jamal Murray just popped open, whether Michael Porter Jr.'s open, or even cutting to the rim. Forget about it. You would not stop this offense if they get another elite perimeter scoring option and another creator in Victor Oladipo. I think that could be a scary combination, and again, it would just really come down to, for the Pacers, would this be the best return they can get? Are they looking for a first-round pick, or are they looking for a high-end veteran player? We don't know exactly what the Pacers want, but this is a potential package that could give them a good return for a guy who's going to be entering free agency at the end of next season. Now, I want to move on to my next trade, which would be with the Houston Rockets. Get ready for this one, folks, and I don't know if it's the guard that you think it will be from the Rockets. The Pacers would receive Russell Westbrook and a 2025 second-round pick, 2024 second-round pick, 2024 second-round pick from the Golden State Warriors, 2026 second-round pick, and a 2022 first-round pick from the Houston Rockets. In exchange, the Rockets would receive Victor Oladipo, Doug McDermott, and TJ McConnell. All right, let's break this down. Why are the Pacers giving up Doug McDermott, TJ McConnell? That's to match salary with Westbrook's $41.3 million. Now, why are the Rockets having to give up a bounty of picks to get rid of Russell Westbrook in exchange for a player who could leave in free agency after 1 year? Well, it's because of that contract with Westbrook, guys. We got to be honest about this. This is, in my opinion at least, one of the worst contracts in the NBA at this current moment, because you're paying a guy in Russell Westbrook who, yes, he can do some heroics in the regular season. He is one of only two people on earth to ever average a triple-double for an entire season. And if I'm not mistaken, I will want to double check this. I'll put a note up here or something. But if I'm not mistaken, he has gone 3 years in a row averaging a triple-double prior to coming to Houston and playing alongside James Harden. So, yes, there are a lot of awesome things that Russell Westbrook can do, but what we also see is a guy that you're paying $41.3 million be the worst shooter in NBA history based on his numbers. And on top of that, in the playoffs, he has reached unplayable status because he will go shoot you out of a game. He will be too aggressive on defense and get tons of fouls. And on offense, you're going to have no chemistry, no team flow. There's going to be no getting a bunch of guys involved because all you're really doing is watching Russell Westbrook go downhill, ignore his other teammates that are probably better creators than him, and try and force something up at the rim or do one of his crazy turnovers that he always does. Now, again, Russ is a really good passer. Russ is a really good scorer. Russ is really good at driving the rim. Russ has that dog in him. But his greatest strengths are his greatest downfalls as well. And that's the most frustrating part about Russell Westbrook, is because honestly, I can't blame the guy. Anyone in their right mind is going to lean on their greatest strengths in the highest pressure moments. But for Russell Westbrook, that has always been and will always be his demise, at least in my opinion. Now, with this trade, why would Indiana trade for a guy like Westbrook? Really, that's to say, we're going to go out and get a guy who we watched for about a decade in Oklahoma City, be in a small market, a team where most guys don't want to be, and continue to bring that dog day in and day out, whether they're playing a game, whether they're doing a practice, whatever it is. Russell Westbrook is going to bring that MVP intensity to your organization every single day. You actually saw the influence that had on Victor Oladipo after playing for Oklahoma City with that 1 year overlap that he had with Russell Westbrook there. It was eye-opening for him because he saw the work ethic that it takes to actually become an MVP level player like Russell Westbrook is. That inspired him to put in the work that next offseason and become a completely different player in Indiana. Let's not forget when that Paul George trade initially went down, sending George to Oklahoma City in exchange for Victor Oladipo, we were clowning the Indiana Pacers because we thought they just got fleeced. Turns out Victor Oladipo was a really good player because he learned what kind of work you actually have to put in to be that good. That is the impact that Russell Westbrook can have on your franchise. So even if he's going to come in and he's not going to help you win a championship, is he going to help you grow guys like Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis from a leadership perspective, from a winning perspective? Although, winning, I just talked about that with Westbrook. But is he going to be able to mentor young players that you bring in from the draft and show them how hard you need to work to play at the highest level in the NBA? That is the value that Indiana would be trading for here in Russell Westbrook, and especially the guarantee that you've got him for 3 more years as opposed to just the 1 year with Oladipo when he has already told you, nah, I want out of here. So that's the look at this trade here. That is if Indiana wants to find that star player in return for Oladipo and wants to continue to try and contend in the short term while also building for the long term. Now, another veteran-centric deal here, but less drastic than Westbrook, that's for sure. We've got the Pacers trading with my favorite the Pacers trading with my favorite Utah Jazz. I'm going to be a little biased here. This is the trade I want to see happen, but who knows if that'll actually happen. So in this trade, the Pacers would receive Mike Conley, Ed Davis, Georges Niang, Nigel Williams-Goss, a 2022 second-round pick, a 2023 second-round pick, and a 2021 second-round pick from the Golden State Warriors. In exchange, the Utah Jazz would receive Victor Oladipo and Doug McDermott. Now, Doug McDermott is in this deal for salary purposes. That is why you see the inclusion of Williams-Goss, of Georges Niang, to try as best you can to offset that value in addition to those 3 second-round picks. The reason for the 3 second-round picks is I believe if Utah was approaching these trade negotiations and saying, okay, we're doing a Conley for Oladipo swap, what I'm looking at here, if I'm Utah coming to this trade negotiation, is I damn well better be able to trade Mike Conley For Mr. 1 year left on his deal, I don't want to play here, Victor Oladipo, without giving up a first round pick. I may need to give up some draft compensation, and that's where you get those 3 second round picks. But I'll be damned if I have to give up a first round pick to get rid of this guy that I just gave up a first round pick to get. That's how Utah's going to look at this trade, and that's why initially I think this is the negotiating position they would start in. From Indiana's perspective, I would want a first-round pick in return for Oladipo if I'm taking on Mike Conley, another aging veteran guard who is expiring this year, and who knows if I'm going to bring him back. So if I'm getting rid of Oladipo, I want something I can keep for the future, and I want that something to be better than Nigel Williams-Goss, the only player in this entire deal with a multi-year contract. So interesting duality there. I think they could work something out. Ultimately, if I'm Utah, if I have an indication from Oladipo or his camp that he would consider re-signing in Utah if things go well, I would put a first round pick in that deal. I would pull the trigger on that trade, and I would get Victor Oladipo paired up with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert to help dominate in the West. Would they be the best team in the West right away? No, not saying that at all, but you put out a starting lineup of Donovan Mitchell, Victor Oladipo, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, and Rudy Gobert. Oh boy, and you would still have a guy like Jordan Clarkson you could re-sign to come off your bench and be a sixth man for you. That would be a pretty dangerous team. That would be a hard team to stop if you're any other teams in the NBA. And then on top of that, adding Victor Oladipo to that Jazz defense, oh my goodness. You've already got multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. You've already got Donovan Mitchell, one of the best defensive young guards growing in the NBA, alongside Victor Oladipo, who is a premier defender at the guard position. Jeez, guys, trying to score on that team would be really tough. So now you're looking at a team that could potentially be top 5 offense and top 5 defense, which is traditionally the recipe for championship contention. So if the Jazz have the opportunity to make this trade, even if it costs a first-round pick, they absolutely should. From the Pacers' perspective, again, that's what value can we extract out of Victor Oladipo, a player who is guaranteed to be leaving after this year. If things work out with Mike Conley, can you re-sign him to $15 million a year for the next 2 or 3 and have him help mentor some young guys there? I would love to see what Mike Conley could do with Malcolm Brogdon. And on top of that, if you could get yourself some draft compensation from Utah, all the better. Now, moving on to the Dallas Mavericks. What would Dallas do to pair up Victor Oladipo with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis? I'm going to get a drink of water before I tell you, because boy, this is going on long. Much better. Okay. In this deal, the Indiana Pacers would receive Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Tim Hardaway Jr., and a 2025 first-round pick. Obviously, this is assuming that Tim Hardaway Jr. does accept his player option, which would be for $18.9 million, so I could see that happening, and I would guess that it probably does. In exchange, the Mavericks would receive Victor Oladipo. For this trade, like many others on this list, really this is the Pacers recognizing the best value that we're going to get in return for Oladipo is a first-round draft pick that we're going to be able to use in the future as an asset that we know cannot leave our team in the next 1, 2, 3 years. That's going to be huge for Indiana. I think they're very much realizing that they are one of those small market teams that needs to grow from within, draft these guys, develop them into players who want to play in Indiana. That is going to be massive for them moving forward after Paul George asked his way out, after Oladipo has now asked his way out. So that would be the selling point for this trade for the Pacers is, okay, we can get some reasonable guard production out of Tim Hardaway Jr. for this next year, and then after that we can build moving forward with players that we believe want to be in Indiana. For Dallas, this is getting yet another guy who can create off the dribble, who can score, who can defend, shoot three-pointers. My goodness, what are you going to do to stop the trio of Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, and Victor Oladipo? Holy cow, if Oladipo can get to 90% of what he was, try stopping that team. Good luck. They're already one of the best, if not the best, offense in NBA history. Adding Oladipo to that, plus what he's going to do on the defensive end, my goodness, the Mavericks would be a scary team. They'd still have some growth to do. They'd still have some holes to fill. But my goodness, forget about trying to contend with them as a young core, as a top three players. I'm really wondering who would compete with them. You know, obviously you have LeBron and AD in LA, but who's number three? I don't know if there's any other top three in the league that would be better than them. So definitely would do that deal if I was Dallas and had that on the table. For Indiana, again, it's going to depend if that's the best option that they can get. Moving on to the next destination, we have the Phoenix Suns. In this trade, the Indiana Pacers would receive Ricky Rubio, Cameron Payne, Ty Jerome, and Jalen Leckie. In return, the Suns would receive Victor Oladipo. So for this trade, really what Indiana would be looking to do is say, okay, can we find a legitimate starting point guard in return for Oladipo here? In Ricky Rubio, they'd be getting that for the next 2 years. They'd also be getting a young guy in Cameron Payne, who, while obviously he has not been stellar, he has not lived up to what he was hyped up to be in the draft, he did look really good in the bubble, and he looked like a serviceable backup point guard in the NBA. Ty Jerome really just there to fill in some extra salary, be an extra guy that you can trade at the deadline to a team who needs a point guard. Jalen Leckie, young point guard on the Suns roster, who may potentially be able to grow into something in the future. This is honestly not a great return for the Pacers. The only situation I see them doing this is if they feel a dire need to have another starting point guard. However, with Malcolm Brogdon already on the roster, I don't really see them doing this trade. So this is really just an option there. If there was nothing else on the market for Oladipo is just dead, which I don't really see happening. That said, if the Suns were able to add Oladipo to what they have going on right now, having those two guys on the perimeter in Devin Booker and Victor Oladipo, both being able to create off the dribble, to create and score for themselves, also creating for their teammates, oh my goodness, trying to stop that would be incredibly hard. Combined with that, they would have an awesome pick and roll, pick and pop partner in DeAndre Ayton. The combination of those three guys would be able to create some crazy, scary offensive sets. However, that said, I don't think that would be the best potential trio involving Oladipo in some of these trades, and I think some of the other trades would provide more value for Indiana. So sorry, Suns fans, but probably not happening. Moving on to, excuse me, must be allergies or something going on, because I am feeling it. But regardless, the next trade here would be with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the team that has the number 2 overall pick this year in the draft. But they're not trading the pick. They're not trading that pick for Oladipo. What we've got in this trade, the Indiana Pacers would receive James Johnson, Josh Okogie, Jarrett Culver, a 2020 second-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick, and a 2022 second-round pick from the Philadelphia 76ers. In exchange, the Timberwolves would receive Victor Oladipo and him alone. With this trade, essentially the big pieces of value here for Indiana would be Josh Okogie and Jarrett Culver. Two guys who can grow into players who can play on the guard spot, on the wing, wherever you need them to be, they can play on that perimeter. And guys who could grow into legitimate rotation players at the guard spots for you. If things go really well with Jarrett Culver, he could be a starting guy. He could be an offensive initiator for you, a playmaker for you, a scorer for you. If things don't go so well, he's going to be a bench player. And things didn't go great in Minnesota. They didn't go terribly. Obviously, it was his rookie year. We're going to see what he actually becomes after multiple years in the league. But where things are at right now, now for Jarrett Culver. He's not necessarily a premier young piece like some people had hyped him up to be when he initially arrived in Minnesota. From Minnesota's perspective, this trade, obviously, for Victor Oladipo would be to add another option alongside D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns that would be able to actually initiate some offense. Obviously, his playmaking ability, his scoring ability from the perimeter would be prolific next to those two. This offense would be incredibly hard to stop. You're looking at one of the most skilled offensive centers in NBA history alongside two relatively young budding talents, both guys who have all-star level talent in D'Angelo Russell and Victor Oladipo, able to get him the basketball and get him opportunities by using their gravity. On the defensive end, Oladipo would definitely help them out, and that's what makes him such a great pairing next to D'Angelo Russell, is he is a true two-way player, whereas D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns most definitely are not. So would Victor Oladipo be able to come in, whip those guys into shape, and teach them how to actually play defense, inspire them to work hard at the defensive end of the floor? My honest assessment of that would be no, because that's what Jimmy Butler was supposed to do. That's what Jimmy Butler has done in Miami with a group of guys that was receptive to that message and an organization that backed him up with that. Not the case in Minnesota. He went to Minnesota, tried like hell to get them to be a competitive team and to get Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins to do what needed to be done to be a competitive team. They did not step up to the challenge, and as soon as Jimmy Butler was not around to carry them, they went nowhere again. I think a very similar thing would happen with Victor Oladipo, except in this case, you wouldn't be able to trade him at the end. He'd just be walking away. So very, very risky trade for the Timberwolves from that perspective. However, if you consider that you're just giving up Josh Okogie and Jarrett Culver, depending on how much you like them, of course, it may be worth that risk. So next, moving on to the Golden State Warriors. Yes, the team that has been in everybody's trade rumors this offseason. Doesn't seem to matter what player you're trading for, whether it's Giannis, Harden, Victor Oladipo, anybody in the league. Golden State has been implicated in those trade negotiations because everyone is so fascinated with them having to have 4 all-star players on their roster at one time. Anything less is unacceptable for the Golden State Warriors. All right, rant over. Let's talk about this trade. The Indiana Pacers would receive Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and a 2021 first-round pick that is top 3 protected. In exchange, the Warriors would receive Victor Oladipo and Doug McDermott to make the salary work out there because, sheesh, that Andrew Wiggins contract, boy oh boy. So obviously for the Warriors, this trade would be picking up Oladipo, increasing their star-level talent on the roster. Now, this would be an interesting trade because you would force Klay Thompson, presumably, to play the small forward spot for the foreseeable future in Golden State, which would he be ecstatic to do? Would he be good in that position? Would he excel there? I think he would have somewhat of a tough time having to match up with LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, all these guys across the NBA that are very big, very strong, very athletic wings that may give Klay Thompson some challenges. I think as a defender at the guard spots, he is absolutely amazing, being able to stick with guys, move his feet, even sticking with guys that are more athletic than him, and using his great hands to get into passing lanes, to block shots low, to do whatever he needs to do to have an impact on the defensive end. I think he's been great at that at the guard spots. I think he'd have a lot more challenges against small forwards, which are going to be bigger, stronger, faster, as I've already mentioned. For the Pacers, this trade would really be saying, okay, we think the best thing that we're going to be able to get back for Victor Oladipo is a guy in Andrew Wiggins who, let's just say Indiana believes that we're going to be able to extract out of him what these last 2 teams haven't. Oh, there's something special in Andrew Wiggins, and we're going to bring out that special sauce. this many years into his career, Wiggins would be showing that off. He would be the guy he's going to become by now. This is the guy he's going to become, which is a guy who is athletic. He can hit some threes. He can score some buckets. He'll get some crazy dunks every now and then. But ultimately, he's just going to kind of malaise around the court and get some mediocre numbers, good enough to continue getting these big contracts. That's kind of what seems like his MO. Obviously, I'm not inside his head. I haven't been around him. I'm not talking with Andrew Wiggins on a day in, day out basis like some of these guys in the Warriors organization or the Timberwolves organization had been. But this is just what I see. That's what I'm seeing out on the court, so that's what I'm going to say. If you come out and prove me wrong, Andrew Wiggins, and start becoming that guy that we thought you could be, or even an approximation of that, I'll give you credit where it's due. But that's what I've seen so far. So if it's me, if I'm Indiana, this ain't the trade I'm doing. I don't want to be stuck with 3 more years of Andrew Wiggins paying him max money to be mediocre. You know, sure, that 2021 first round pick is going to be nice, but it's a Warriors pick. They're going to have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Victor Oladipo, Draymond Green, and the first overall pick, probably James Wiseman. Yeah, that's not going to be a good pick. That's going to be down in the high 20s, maybe even 30. It's not a good trade if you're the Indiana Pacers. But I had to appease all of the Warriors fans out there who believe that the Warriors have to be the team to trade for every star in the NBA who is rumored to be traded this offseason. So you're welcome, Warriors fans. Roast me down below. Moving on to another team full of fans who are going to roast me down below, the New York Knicks. In this trade, the Indiana Pacers would receive Wayne Ellington, Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox, and a 2021 first-round pick that is also top 3 protected. The Knicks would receive in return Victor Oladipo. Now, I hear what you're saying. Why would the Knicks give up 2 young players, a veteran, and a first-round pick for a guy who's on a deal that's about to expire when you're a team notorious for not being able to keep guys and not being able to sign free agents? Because they're the New York Knicks. I mean, my goodness, is this not what they've been doing for the past 5 years, trying to be a team that they're not? They're trying to be the New York Knicks, this legendary franchise that nobody can touch. Oh my goodness, it's the Knicks. They're in New York, the Garden, baby. Or is it a team that's owned by James Dolan that players have been passing up for the last 10 years? I mean, my goodness. This is the Sacramento Kings just in the biggest market in the country. That's what this team is. They're a poorly run team who believes in fairy tales. This is the next fairy tale that they're going to fall for. We're going to bring in Victor Oladipo. We're going to convince him to stay. He's going to be so good with RJ Barrett. No, he's not. You're going to trade for him. He's going to be unhappy. He's going to leave. You're going to be out 2 young players and a first-round pick. But that's the Knicks, man. That's the Knicks. So if you hear them getting in these rumors, be ready because they might do it. They might do it. Let me hear it below, Knicks fans. Excuse me. My goodness. All right. Coming in with yet another trade. This one is, maybe you call it a blockbuster, maybe you don't. But this is with the Milwaukee Bucks trying to get some extra help for Giannis. The Indiana Pacers would receive Brook Lopez, George Hill, Dante DiVincenzo, a 2021 first-round pick, a 2020 first-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick, top 5 protected. That is a lot that you have to give up for Victor Oladipo. But to put it into perspective, the reason that you're making this trade is purely to keep Giannis in town. The way that a trade of this much value would actually come into being is if, you're essentially in that situation where Victor Oladipo has indicated, hey, if I end up in Milwaukee and Giannis is going to stay, I'll resign there. Okay. Are we hearing from back channels, Giannis is saying, oh, oh, I might stay in Milwaukee if they get Victor Oladipo. That's how this trade becomes a reality. That's where Victor Oladipo and his agent start signaling out to the rest of the league, yeah, we're only going to re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks. Then all of a sudden, that could give leverage to Milwaukee, that could give leverage to Indiana here. Because it could be saying, okay, well, he's going to re-sign with you. You're getting this guy for a long time, and he's helping you keep Giannis. You got to pay for him. That's what this would be. Now, are they going to get all three of those picks? Probably not. Are they going to get two? Maybe. Maybe they just end up with their own Indiana Pacers pick this year, and they're happy with that. Indiana could be happy with that, especially considering you're getting Brook Lopez and Dante DiVincenzo in this deal. It'd still be a pretty good deal. So Milwaukee wouldn't necessarily have to give up all of this in this trade, but it could be an awesome option. Now, thinking about Victor Oladipo playing with the Milwaukee Bucks, oh my gosh. I mean, I've said it about Oladipo a couple times in this video already. The playmaking ability, the scoring ability from the perimeter, that is exactly what the Bucks are missing. And that second guy apart from Chris Middleton who would be able to initiate and engage in pick and rolls with Giannis to continue to use his gravity even when you have to get the ball out of his hands. It just gives you another option to be able to do that, and a premier option at that. So this would be an awesome trade for the Bucks if they want to continue to be competitive with Giannis. Now, that said, you really have to believe that you're getting Giannis back to give up Brook Lopez, George Hill, and Dante DiVincenzo, not to mention extra draft compensation. So you would really, really have to be confident that Giannis would re-sign with your team and that you'd be able to re-sign Victor Oladipo, which is asking a lot. That's a lot of assumptions to make for one trade. Moving on to another Eastern Conference team here, we have got the Toronto Raptors. In this deal, the Indiana Pacers would receive Kyle Lowry, DeJuan Hernandez, and a 2023 first-round pick, top 8 protected. In exchange, the Raptors would receive Victor Oladipo and Doug McDermott. All right, so with this trade, this is the Raptors trying to get some more help that will be compatible with Pascal Siakam. This year in the playoffs, I think it became clear to everybody that Pascal Siakam is not necessarily going to ascend to that number one option type guy on a championship roster, which, no slight, that's incredibly hard to do, on top of course, it being incredibly hard to even make the NBA. That said, I still think that Pascal Siakam is a premier number 2 on a championship team. Do I think Victor Oladipo is a premier number 1? No, I see him as that number 2, maybe even a number 3 guy. So you would still be in a position as the Toronto Raptors of where you have to go out and find the guy. So I don't know how much this helps you. Really, this is just, I don't know, man, because are you going to be able to re-sign Victor Oladipo in the offseason, or would you be better off keeping that draft pick in-house, letting Kyle Lowry walk at the end of the season and trying to sign somebody in free agency? That may be the better route to go, but the challenge there being that you're Toronto, you're the only team in Canada, and that traditionally has been a little bit of a roadblock to getting free agents to go sign with the Toronto Raptors. Has that changed now that they've won a championship, now that they've shown themselves to be a premier franchise, and especially with the reputation of Toronto increasing here in the United States, a lot of people actually traveling there, getting to see the city, and realizing it's an awesome place to be. Those are things that are going in favor for the Toronto Raptors to be able to start signing free agents in the future, but that's still something that's yet to be seen. Now, from the Pacers' perspective here, it's really saying we're trading one guard who's a free agent for another guard who's a free agent. Kyle Lowry's going to be good for us this year. We're going to let him walk. And in exchange, we get this first-round pick. That's really as simple as the calculation is for the Pacers in this deal. Next, I want to move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. Much rumored team this offseason in just about every trade negotiation. In this deal, the Indiana Pacers would receive Mike Scott, Josh Richardson, Zaire Smith, and a 2021 first-round pick in exchange for Oladipo. So in this deal, you are essentially seeing Josh Richardson plus Mike Scott for the salary, plus Zaire Smith to be a quote-unquote young guy, although is he really going to see many NBA minutes at this point? I think the jury's out on that. I think we know what's up. So really, this is for that first-round pick and Josh Richardson, which is not a bad return for Victor Oladipo, a guy who will be a free agent at the end of this year. For the Sixers, it is obviously a move to try and get somebody on this roster who is going to be able to play with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. This would be a move for them if they are not committed to the idea of splitting those two up, which it very much appears that they are not into that idea. So this could be a potential move for the Sixers to see, okay, if we add this elite perimeter talent next to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, is that going to be enough for us to be able to space these guys out just enough to be able to get them to play cohesively on the floor at the same time? This could be the year that tells them, yes, that will work, or no, it will not. And you'd have to be giving up Josh Richardson, Zaire Smith, and that pick to be able to do it. But that may be worth it to the Sixers because at the very least, yes, Victor Oladipo would leave in free agency, but you would now know for sure we have to trade either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons and move on from one of these guys in the next offseason, at which point they'd be able to get a massive gargantuan return for one of those guys and would not be that upset about losing a first-round pick here. That said, how many first-round picks are they going to give up trying these experiments to see, oh, will this guy help Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons play together? Will this guy do it? I don't know if they necessarily need to do that. As I stated in a previous video, I think a lot of the problems with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons not being able to play on the same floor together were because of Brett Brown. He really did nothing to diversify that offense and was really playing an offense that was designed for David Robinson and Tim Duncan in San Antonio when he was an assistant there. He pretty much took that offense and just said, oh, this is how you play NBA basketball. No, it's not. How you play NBA basketball is taking advantage of the strengths of your players and minimizing the opportunities that your opponent has to attack their weaknesses. That's what great coaches do, like Greg Popovich, the guy that you learned that offensive system from, because what we've seen Greg Popovich do through his entire career is always adjust his system to the players that he has, not the other way around. Brett Brown was one of those guys who is set in stone. This is the way we have to play basketball. And if you're not playing like that right now, well, gosh darn it, by the end of the year, you better be. It doesn't work. That's not how the NBA works. That's not how basketball works. Now, obviously, I'm just a guy talking about basketball in his bedroom, so what the do I know? I haven't been a head coach in the NBA or any basketball league, so take it for what it is. But I'm not the only one who's been calling out Brett Brown's inability to adjust and his lack of leadership as a coach in Philadelphia. So all that said, this would be a good trade for the Pacers. I think it would also be a good trade for the Sixers if they believe they're able to extract extra value out of Embiid and Simmons by having an elite premier scorer next to them. Next, I want to move on to the final team that I have here for all these trades. Been almost 45 minutes here, so my goodness, it is about time. Here we have the Brooklyn Nets. So in this trade, the Indiana Pacers would receive Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, a 2020 second-round pick, and a 2021 second-round pick. In exchange, the Nets would receive Victor Oladipo. So this trade may actually be one of the best for the Indiana Pacers. They get a guy in Karis LeVert who can play the 2 and the 3 spot, may be able to play down to the 1 if you want him to, but I don't think that would necessarily happen on their roster. So you're getting a wing player who is just coming into his own, and in the NBA bubble showed that he can be a really high impact player if you have him as one of your higher volume players on the team. He showed that he can step up and get it done. In Jarrett Allen, you're also getting a guy who in this scenario on the Pacers would be coming off the bench and really be an extension of a lot of the things that you're getting out of Miles Turner at the center spot in your starting lineup, being that great defense, the rim protection, and a little bit of ability to stretch the floor. Less so in Jarrett Allen. He's going to be more of a lob threat than he is a shooter out there on the floor at the center spot. But regardless, you're bringing him in as a young player to add extra value to this trade. And I think he very much does that. If you're getting Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen, as well as draft compensation in exchange for just Victor Oladipo, a guy who's going to be leaving the team at the end of this year, that's a really good return in my opinion. So like a lot of these trades on the list, this would have to be the best option available, which is obviously a no-brainer for the Pacers. But if that's the case, they should not be upset with this return. Pacers fans should not be upset with this return if this is the trade that ends up going down for Victor Oladipo. That said, the projected wins here is an interesting thing on this trade, showing a -18 for the Nets. That would not be the case. They'd go sign another backup center. They'd figure all that out. They'd find another guard to come off the bench and get some scoring in. So I don't think they would be missing Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen that much from this particular Nets team that doesn't need Karis LeVert to carry a heavy scoring load, that doesn't need Jarrett Allen to come in and be a starting NBA center because they already have DeAndre Jordan. This would allow them to add yet another star-level talent onto their roster, combining with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Ooh. Now, obviously, that is assuming that Kevin Durant is going to come back and be the same guy. That is assuming that Victor Oladipo is going to reach 100% again. But oh man. Now, one thing that would scare me if I was a Nets fan and this trade went down, we would now be depending on 3 injury-prone players: Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Victor Oladipo, guys who all have an injury history throughout their career. That'd be a little scary, especially considering your center is DeAndre Jordan, a guy who is aging, starting to lose a little bit of his athleticism. Those kind of guys, health starts to become a question as well. So this could be a team that year after year just has 1 or 2 of their guys always missing to the point where they can't contend simply because of health. That would be incredibly unfortunate, and I don't wish that on any NBA team. I would love to see this Brooklyn Nets team at full strength and see what they can be. All that said, that really sums up my thoughts on that particular trade. That is the end of the list of potential trades that I have for you for Victor Oladipo. And I think the takeaway from this video is that while you're not going to be seeing that Paul George return or that Kawhi Leonard return, although I don't know if that was necessarily that great, but you're not going to be seeing a huge return for Victor Oladipo in one of these trades simply because he is a free agent at the end of the year and he does have some health concerns. So you're not going to see massive deals, but what you see for the Pacers is a lot of situations where they can find a positive value trade for Victor Oladipo, which is exactly what they need. Any team in a small market and any fan base should be incredibly excited whenever their team is able to make a positive value trade like this, where you're getting rid of a guy who doesn't want to be there and will be gone in a year for a draft pick or for players that can have an impact on your team right now. Whereas Victor Oladipo was sitting in a suit all last year. So for Pacers fans, I don't think you should be all that upset that Victor Oladipo wants out of town. It does definitely suck that 2 star players in a row now have said, yeah, I don't want to be here in Indiana. That's got to hurt. But at the end of the day, don't be upset if you get one of these returns for Victor Oladipo. And from my perspective as a Jazz fan, please, Dennis Lindsey, do it. Do it. Get Victor Oladipo. That all out the way, that covers everything I had to add to this topic. I definitely appreciate you tuning into the video, especially if you made it this far. Freaking 49 minutes in, you are a champ if you made it this far. Definitely leave a like down below if you enjoyed the video. And as always, if you want to help this show grow, the absolute best way to do so is to simply share this with your friends. So definitely share it with your friends. Subscribe if you want to get more content like this. And if you don't want to miss a single video that I upload, hit that notification bell down below. Hit all on there. Make sure you do that, and you will see every video that I post in a notification. All that out the way, I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.